And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey's Researchers Reports. Night number 3 of our 12 Days of Christmas. It is the French Hens episode. With me, as always, producer and co-host of the report, Miss Daniela Aiolo. How are you, Daniela?
I'm good, thank you.
Great to be here with you. And our guest this evening, coming to us all the way from Springfield, Missouri, Mr. Chris Kelier. How are you, Chris?
Good. How are you?
Good. Expecting to have a good episode. You know, I talked to you on the phone those few days before Thanksgiving, and knew I had to have you on the show. Unfortunately, I just talked to like 35 people after that and lost your phone number. So thank you, Daniela, for hooking this up. I said thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Before we get started, just want to remind everyone in the chat, please keep it clean for us. It's Christmas time. Be wonderful to each other and festive. No arguing back and forth, and just be respectful. We do appreciate it. All right, let's jump right into it. Chris, so what all got this started, man? Did you believe in Bigfoot when you were a kid, say before you were a teenager?
When I was a kid, monsters didn't exist, that's what you're always told. So not really, no. I was in the woods one summer. There was a creek. I won't say exactly where, but there was a creek, and I heard somebody or something playing around in the creek, and I thought, good, I'm not going to be alone down here playing the creek. And you walk through some woods, and then it opens up, and there was this creature sitting on a flat rock, slapping his hands in the water. And I walked up on it because I didn't know. I had no idea, never even considered there being anything like that in the woods. And it turned around and kind of did a double take and stood up and turned his body towards me. And it was a giant orangutan. I mean, that's what it looked like. Bright orange hair. Didn't look like a football player or a linebacker, It looked like Michael Jordan covered in orange hair. Tall basketball player. And, we stared at each other. I wish I would have stuck around, to find out more about this thing, but we stared at each other, and he took a step towards me, and fight or flight kicked in, and I fell down about halfway home. I thought I was had, I thought he grabbed me or and when I realized that he didn't have me, I got back up and ran all the way home, and it was definitely the scariest thing.
Did you tell anybody?
Not for a while. I didn't really have anybody to tell. Trying to sort it out in my own head, and still, it's been 22 years, 23 years, and I'm still trying to sort it out in my head.
And you were 13 or 14, right?
It was 15.
15?
Yeah.
Now, and you said orangutan. Now, does that mean orangutan like face? Is that what it looked like?
It was more of a like the old paintings or old pictures of Native Americans. It was definitely a Native American face, but our human brains, we see something covered in hair, and we automatically go to, bear, monkey, so I've always said it was a giant orangutan, but it was more of a person, but covered in hair.
No, I can relate. Absolutely. I mean, bright orange. You said, I think I remember you saying he was about 7 feet tall, maybe even a little
about
taller.
seven and a half, maybe. Like I said, wasn't huge, was definitely built, but it was slender. You could see his skin through the hair. The hair was thin.
Mm.
So on the arms you could see like through. On the chest, not so much. On the legs, not so much. Down towards the ankles, yeah, you could see the skin. And it was just a dark brown, oily, sweaty skin. I mean,
Right.
it was a hot summer day. If I was walking around in a fur coat, I'd want to play in the creek too. So,
and what was the distance? It was pretty close, wasn't it?
He was 10 to 15 feet. I mean,
Oh, wow.
literally feet. If he would have jumped, he would have caught me. I mean, if he would have, when he took a step, it was a step. If he would have lunged towards me, he'd have had me. Easy.
Oh, wow.
Easy. Close enough to see everything. He was a male for sure. And the look on his face was, it was either, what is that? Or I can't believe I let this sneak up on me, or
Right.
it was confusion. It was, like I said, it felt like we stared at each other forever. And it may not have been. I fell down halfway home and thought I was still standing there staring at this thing. So, I don't know how long exactly we stared at each other, but.
Well, I remember the first time you told me, and what it exactly reminded me of, Bo McGee, who hunts the property where I had my encounter many years after. It was like 8 years after he started hunting it after I left there. Well, he had seen these creatures out there twice. And the first time, there's this one place where I used to just get creeped out all the time. And there's a little bitty, it's kind of swampy, but there's like a little puddle of water. What is that noise? What's going on? You hear that?
I heard something.
Oh no, it's not me. Okay. Anyway, it's a little distracting. That's look on the left side. It's like, it's not really a pond, but it holds water, and there's little, small tree stumps and everything in it. Fall used to settle in it, and I would just get creeped out there every time. Well, Bo is walking through there one morning and sees exactly what you saw. Wasn't huge, was tall, red, slender, bent down, like sitting on its heels with its arm in the water, like it was just, moving its hand back and forth in the water. Looked at him, stood up, turned away, and just walked away. Now, not exactly the same thing that happened to me, but I just wonder if the younger ones just are red, and then as they get older, and bigger and more, robust, they get, they turn darker. But it just, when you told me that, it reminded me so much of that. And it's, relatively the same thing, except he was about maybe 40 or 50 feet away from it. Now, obviously, this event sparked some curiosity in you, so you started looking into this right away. I'm assuming.
I am very addicted. I've got just about every movie, fascinating or stupid, Bigfoot related. I've got tons of books. My friends all laugh because when we're going to do something, in the summertime, like hit the lake or whatever, I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in, you guys go swim, and I'm going to go play in the woods,
Right.
And it's not, I say Bigfoot researcher. Yeah. Do I want to see one of these things again? Not alone. I definitely, if I see one or have an encounter, I want somebody to be there with me. that fight or flight feeling. I never want to have that again. That's just Kerry, you know, when you say in your documentary, you know, when you start feeling yourself breathe again, when you start coming back to reality, it's that almost missing time feeling that you feel you were there, but when you come back, like when I fell down about halfway home and it was like I had to shake my head, you know, I was coming out of this dizzy, you know, I didn't know what was going on, kind of feeling. And I never want to have that again. That was very intense feeling.
Yeah, it's pure dread. It's well, I describe it as a true sinking feeling. You know, when that sudden moment of realization hits you, that exactly what you're looking at, it's just you just deflate, or I did anyway. But you know, what I had encountered was mad. He was very angry at me, what I was doing, and was, you know, giving me the business. Was actually giving me the business before I ever truly realized, you know, what it was. And then, like I said, you know, it's that, oh, it's that, you know, that kind of feeling. And then everything else that happened in between there, I don't remember feeling anything. Like you said, I think everything shuts down. You know, your autonomic functions obviously are working, but I didn't. All of a sudden, like you said, I realized that I was breathing really not fast, long, deep breaths. And you know, my wife, she's a registered nurse. She said, you know, adrenaline. When you get a lot of adrenaline, you start to come down. That happens. You get heat on the periphery. It's like tunnel vision, and you're really discombobulated from it. You know, it's just like
I think at 15 as well must be even more terrifying, you know, and you kind of had an idea that Bigfoot was about, Kerry, I guess, or you know, you'd heard about them, or maybe
right.
You know,
oblivious, still completely and totally unaware. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like I said, monsters aren't supposed to be real. So when you run into one, then what are you supposed to think? You know, sorry, kids, is Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy real now? I mean, you know, it makes you start questioning, you know, everything you've been told, or, you know, and it's a crazy experience, you know.
Absolutely. I've got something here. I want to see if I can find it and share it.
How long was the hair?
It wasn't like he was shaggy. His chest, his back. When I walked up on him, there was like tangled dry grass and leaves on his back, on his shoulders. He was shaggy in the middle and you know, his thighs and everything. But his hair on his arms, you know, 4 or 5 inches maybe, but it was thin. Like I said, you could see his skin through the hair, but not so much on the chest or, you know, shoulders.
Interesting. Do you think that's what it was doing? It was playing down by the water.
I mean, he was taking his right hand and just slapping the water. So I'm assuming. I mean, when you look at little kids playing in the water, you know, they kind of slap it, splash around, you know, and that's kind of what he was doing. And when he stood up, he actually had his right arm extended, and I can see the water dripping off the hair on his arm, and he just, I don't know, he might have been in complete shock too. It was very weird and very confusing, and it's still very confusing after 22 years or whatever it's been.
I know that's the frustrating part, right? You know, now that you know, there's no more believing anything. You know that there have to be answers to these questions, and you just can't find them. All you get is a bunch of speculation, and people passing their speculations off, you know, as facts, and it's very frustrating. It is. I'm right there with you. Sorry, Danielle, I mean to take over, but I do remember you telling me this wasn't your only experience, was it?
No, actually, about 2 weeks after the 4th of July this year, I was driving down a road. It was a highway, and off to the right, there's a ditch and then a wood line. And there was a creature standing on the side of the road as I passed. And I had turned around. I've got 3 high-powered spotlights in my car. I turned around and this thing was gone, but it was definitely there. The fur on this thing, as far as I could tell, they were almost like dreads. Very long, very matted, kind of nasty hair looking, and I could see his eyes, and it reflected off my headlights. And I mean, it was just right there. If I'd have been riding in the passenger seat with the window down, I could have reached out and touched this thing. Wow. But it was completely gone. There was no trace of it. When I turned around, shined my lights, I got out, walked around, and my first sighting, it was a completely different experience. My second sighting, I just kind of reacted. I'll turn around, let me spotlight this thing. Maybe I can take a picture of it, maybe not, but it was completely gone. And that was the eerie feeling of that encounter. It was there and it was gone in a flash. And did I really see anything? But there were no trees, there were no bushes on the side of the road, and I replay that over and over in my mind too. Where this thing went, it could have jumped and been in the wood line, but I didn't hear anything. It was quiet. It was dark.
That you turned around, that's one thing, but you got out. That just.
I never claimed to be smart.
Blows my mind, man.
I never claimed to be smart.
I couldn't do it. I had a guy who was telling me his encounter, and he wanted to remain anonymous. And he's telling me he's fishing, and this huge rock just comes right over. He's out on a dock in a relatively public place. He's out like on a Sunday by himself, and this huge rock just comes over and into the water. And I think it's like a river, not a huge river, maybe like 50 feet wide. And he turns and looks, and he doesn't see anything, and he's like, completely baffled. Then all of a sudden he sees one come out, a smaller one this time, like softball size, and hits the water. And then he just happens to look up to the right, and he sees this thing standing there. It's kind of behind a tree, but standing out, looking at him. He says it was huge, black, dark. And then as soon as it realized that he saw it, it jets into the woods, and he goes after it with a fishing pole. Now, I don't, I have a tendency to believe everybody, I've seen this thing. No reason for me to doubt that anyone else has seen it. But to go after it, after that seeing this thing can throw a basketball-sized rock, or a half-size basketball anyway, a big rock that far, and then a smaller one that's throwing things at you, apparently, or to get your attention, to get you out of there. And then you see this massive thing go into the woods, and then you go up there to try to get a better look at it. I felt like there was a lot more to the story that he was leaving out, the way he was telling it. But you have these people that do this, and they see this creature and they want to go after it. I can't track with it. And then on the other scope, you have people that want to go out there and research and look for it. And I don't know, I think maybe, in my mind, I believe that they don't really believe. They just want to go see for themselves. And then they hear something, a scream, or they have some kind of experience, and they're ready to leave. They just want to go. The very thing that they're out there to research or to look for or whatever, something happens, they're out of there, So I just the the spectrum of people that that encounter this thing and how they feel and their actions, to me, is as diverse as the creature itself. And that's why I say we'll never fully figure these things out. They're too, to me, they're just too different from one place to the other, from behavior to the way they look. It's just crazy.
My opinion, though, there's got to be a way. I mean, we as people, we hunt, we can track anything. We can track, the smallest organisms. I mean, we know there's got to be a way. I'm hoping that your expedition to Florida will uncover something. But like I was telling Daniela the other night that so what if, like you had said, what if they knew you were there, or they knew you were there, but what if they thought that you knew they were there the whole time? So what if,
I believe that.
What if these things think that everybody here, everybody in the world, humans, know they exist, and it's just an unwritten law that to them that they stay away from us. Now, everybody makes mistakes. We see them occasionally. I mean, there's lots of sightings, but what if it's, they know they're bigger, they know they can hurt us, and what if it's just it's things I think about. What if it's just an unwritten law to them that they stay away from us, and that maybe that's why most of the sightings, they turn around and walk away. Maybe it's just this thing, these little foots, are in the woods, and one accidentally saw me, and my bad, I'll just turn around and walk away. I mean, there's so many things we don't know about these creatures. But what if it's just things I think about? What if they think that we already know they're there, and they try to avoid us because they're bigger, and then throwing rocks at us, or screaming or whatever? Maybe it's just they're bigger than us. They can pick on us, the bullies, but they don't always. I don't know.
You may be right. You may be absolutely right. I contend that they're predisposed to hiding and not wanting to be found out, but still wanting to watch us. I mean, you think something that is emotionally intelligent would want to be entertained at some point, would know what sadness and happiness is, and anger, obviously, those emotions. But I think because we don't find their bodies, I think they're so predisposed to hiding and not being found out and staying away from us that they're not going to leave one of their dead around for us to find. They're going to do something with it. And I tend to believe that if they do think we're there, they're still not going to let us get anywhere near them if they can help it. Now, the place we're going for the expedition, I think they believe that people are completely and totally oblivious, because you got to think, this is a camper park. Where we're going to be is on the edge of this place. And they sit right there on the fringes and watch these people all the time. There's been so many stories out of this place of them coming into camp, getting in the coolers, taking things away. So many reported sightings in this place. But that's how I feel about it. I think they just don't want to be seen. They don't want to be found out. And I don't think they just hide from us. I think they hide from everything, even in the dark. They're trying to be, incognito. But the place we're going, I think they've been comfortable for a very long time. The guy that's going to be directing the expedition, Mark Zaski, has done quite a few expeditions in this place. Has caught them on camera. Just a face poking through the bushes, looking at them. But that's the nature of this creature.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, no, just absolutely. And to touch on the body theory, why have we never found a body? There's tons of black bear here in Missouri. I've only seen a couple alive, and I've been down in the deepest, darkest woods. I've never come across a bear body.
Yeah.
Or even a deer body that hasn't been killed by a hunter and left.
Right.
Or a car. So to be able to theorize about bodies, well, we should be able to find bodies. Not necessarily, not necessarily.
Yeah, nature does tend to take care of them, especially in places like where you live in the South. There's, just in the southern quarter of the United States, there's like 300,000 black bears. So I mean, and maybe some of those are responsible for some Bigfoot sightings. Who knows? They don't get that big. 300 pounds is a big black bear. Where I'm from, but I've never seen a black bear in the woods. I've never heard of anybody saying they saw a black bear in the woods, and I think they're pretty well restricted to just certain areas.
I saw one time, and it was sitting on a log playing, and I backed out. I left it alone. But yeah, they're all over the place. But to not see them, and to not see them doesn't mean they don't exist here.
Yeah, there is an answer to that question. But it is a question: why haven't we run into their bodies and found their bones? And if you look at a lot of the Miocene apes, that more than 30 species of upright walking ape that walked the earth for 25 million years. And who's to say one of these things didn't walk right out of the Miocene? Or several of them. Gigantopithecus, lived during this era. And when they do find them, I mean, think how hard it is to make a fossil. How hard is it to make a fossil? It's either got to be underground or, there's a very specific set of circumstances have to happen for a fossil to be created. Well, we've been digging these hominoid skulls out of the ground for the last 200 years. Now, how did they get in the ground? I think they got buried. Simple as that. I mean, we found so many of them that I don't think it's an accident we find that many of the hominoids, the creatures that we supposedly came from. I don't believe that. I believe that's Sasquatch. I believe that's where they came from. It's that same bone structure, that heavy brow, low forehead, deep set eyes, large nasal, prognathic, bulging mouth. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to take over the the show here. I can get going sometimes. But hey, I want to take a second. Let's take just a quick break. If you haven't already, if you're on your phone, you'll see a little X over there. Hit that X. Leave the chat. Go over there. You'll see a button that looks like this. It's probably going to look like this. Hit that button for us. We do appreciate it. And I just want to let everybody know, Linda did find a family, single mother. Her car just exploded like a week ago, and she's got an 8-year-old little girl, and they're struggling. So we're going to take, I don't know, it may be more than $500. It won't be any less than that. And they're going to go, I'm not going to be home. So Linda and one of her sisters, they're going to go and get some stuff for the baby for Christmas, and some food, and whatever they do, they may fix the car. I have no idea, but I asked Linda, I said, we'll try to get it on video. And I can understand, the mother not wanting, to be on video, but she can at least get, the child on the video, opening some presents or something. So that's courtesy of all of you that donated for the expedition. We're taking $500 from there for that needy family here for Christmas. And we thank you for that. Absolutely.
That's definitely awesome.
Yeah, it is. We're excited about it. I wish I could be there for it, but Linda, she's amazing. That's all I can say. And just want to let everybody know, myself and Mark Zaski are going to be doing a podcast. Probably going to start recording sometime in the middle of next week. We got several shows lined up, to record already. It is going to be available on Patreon only. And we haven't created that Patreon account yet. I'm going to create that. It's going to be $1 per episode, and we'll probably do 2 to 3 episodes per month. So, and again, not going to be for kids. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that most people don't talk about, a lot of fringe subjects that people don't talk about, chupacabra, thylacines, and, you know, specific instances that has happened with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, things like that. It should be pretty good. You know, Mark's, you know, off the cuff, he comes out with some incredible stuff. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. And that's all I have to say about that right now. So we'll get back to the show with Chris Kelier. Now, Chris, what do you think these creatures are? What do you think they are?
Well, like I said, I mean, I have no idea. It was definitely Native American looking, but it was definitely monkey looking too. So,
do you track with Melba Ketchum any at all?
I've watched a lot of. I spend most of my time on YouTube watching everything.
Amen.
And podcasts, you know. And I've watched Bigfoot Odyssey episodes multiple times to where I can almost tell you what everybody's going to say in every single one. So,
wow, I don't watch them that much. That's awesome.
Well, like I said, I'm addicted. It's Bigfoot's a drug. I've got, you know, T-shirts. I've got an 80-pound concrete statue that it's my life. It's consumed me. It's been good therapy, I guess. And trying to get back in the woods, you know, I do a little bit of hiking and stuff. I prefer to have somebody with me. You know, it all depends how deep I go. If I'm going deep, I got to have somebody with me. If I'm just going to be kind of on the outskirts, I'm all right. But, you know, every little noise, every time the wind blows and the stick rattles, you know, every time a squirrel cracks into a nut, you know, it terrifies me. I look all over the place. It's consumed me, but I'm still terrified. I'm still terrified.
Look, if I go in the woods, I'm taking an entourage of people that are going to be armed with me, and that's just the way it is. And you know, and I've had people tell me, Kerry, why don't you just go hunt, man? You can do it. Because I won't be able to hunt is why. I don't know. Have you ever squirrel hunt?
Oh yeah.
You squirrel hunt when you're a kid? You ever see a snake when you're squirrel hunting? You're not squirrel hunting anymore. You're snake hunting. You know, your eyes are on the ground. Same thing. You know, if I were to go back and try to deer hunt, I would be looking for, you know, where's he watching me from? You know,
exactly.
So there's no point in it.
Exactly. And you know, when I hunt, you know, I've got a 12 gauge, and you know, I totally get where you come from. You know, you hunt with the plug, but if I would have come in, you know, contact, you're right. Would I take the plug out? No, you got to take the barrel off, and you got to do all that, and so much can happen in that, you know, right. Just a little bit of time. But you know, I've got several knives on me. I will have a pistol on me. I'll have my shotgun, and I still don't feel safe. It still scares me.
That's it. That's exactly it. And it's not because you think anything's going to happen, but I'm of the mind, and I say, you've heard me say this too, I would rather have it and not need it. Every single
exactly.
I don't want to be in a position where, man, I wish I had my pistol. So
did you smell anything on that first encounter? Did you smell anything?
I did. Walking in, it was really humid. It gets really humid here in Missouri, and so it smelled skunky, BO-ish, urine-y type of smell. It's a smell that, the way I describe it, and Kerry, maybe you can relate. The first time you smell deer urine, you know, you get a can of that or a little bottle of that. The first time you smell it, you never forget. Every time you smell deer urine after that, you go, "Yep, that's deer pee." Yeah. It's one of those, like, I haven't smelt that intense of a smell since. But I could definitely, I think I could pick that up out of a lineup if I, you know, if it was presented to me.
It's definitely different.
Yeah.
And it has a strong urine, what I smelled anyway when I was in Florida. It has a very strong urine tinge to it. Urine
and BO and skunk. And,
maybe.
if you walked around in a fur coat, 365 days,
Precisely.
you would stink. I mean, you would have a smell.
Precisely. Before, I'm sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
Well, there was
you know me.
Here, and I was going to kind of ask the same thing, and I've just well, the question is, were you close enough to see its eyes? But also the one on the what color was the eye shine on the second one?
The second one, it was like it was kind of white, almost reflector kind of shine. My headlights, it was only in my headlights a second, as you're driving, if I'd have been creeping down the highway, I might have been able to tell you, better, but, you're flying down the highway and, but the first time they were kind of like an amber orangish and, dark. No, I didn't see any whites, but I see this thing, and I see this thing in my dreams. I see this thing. It's always in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking about that first encounter. I'm not really sure I was focused on the eye. Is it, this giant thing, I'm looking, okay, I see the top of his head, and then I kind of move down and I see everything in between, and then back up. And like I said, I don't know how long I stood there. It may have been seconds, could have been, there's a missing time. And I think that's what people talk about when they have missing time, because I didn't even know I ran away. I was still standing there looking at this thing. So, I go over it and over it and over it in my head, and I see this thing. But, focusing on any certain thing, like I know what I stared at the most, chest, arm, the water dripping down, the hair, his face, but not specific face. I could see this thing looking at me, but in my mind, I'm looking at something that doesn't exist. And like I said, then when I fell down, it was like, wow, I'm not even standing there, but I felt like I was standing there, still. So, and then we talked about, it took a step towards me. I think that it was curious. I think it was, let's see what happens. Instead of turning around and walking away, maybe it didn't even think about that. Maybe it was stunned.
Was it first? Was it a look of shock on its face seeing you, or more that it knew you were there?
Yeah, it was more. I'm standing there going, "What is that?" And the look on its face was almost like, "What is that?" Or oh no, how stupid am I was playing in the water and this thing walked up on me, and it could have been completely different circumstance. What if I would have taken a step towards it? Would we have hugged, or would he have torn me in half? I have no idea. But I that initial step, and then I guess I was gone, because that's all I remember.
I mean, that could have been a female with young ones with it, which would have been a completely different story if you'd have stumbled up.
Could have been,
Did you think it was young then, even though it was big? Did you get the impression? I know you can't tell by looking at it, but it's kind of, was it playing like a young one would, or adolescent, teenager?
Yeah, I mean, it struck me as, it's hot outside, I'm going to sit on this rock and play in the water. I mean, that's what I was going to go do. I was going to go play in the water. So, there was really no fish in that creek. There's crawdads, And it's dry like half the time, only when it's raining or, is there water in it. So that's the impression I got, is it was playing, it was bored, it was hot.
Question here, have you had any other encounters apart from sightings? Anything else you can't explain?
That's Kevin, Arizona Squatch.
Yeah, he's on tour.
I've heard a lot of vocalizations, screams coming out of the woods. Kerry, when you heard the whip sound, I've heard that over and over and over and over, not just one time.
Yeah. Well, when I say that, and I want to clear this up, I don't think it didn't sound like a whip. It was just abrupt, and it stopped. Yeah. It's like cracked at the end. Wow. Like,
I've heard that over and over and over coming out of the woods. I've heard what sounded like a human saying "hey," but it was extremely deep and extremely drawn out, long, and it was scary. Middle of the night, hey. Really long. I've heard whoop and wood knocks. I've seen tracks. I'll send you pictures, Kerry, Daniela. I meant to, and I didn't.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
I haven't casted anything yet, but when I see these things, I'm not looking. I'm in the woods playing, or I'm at the lake or whatever, and look down and there's a giant footprint. Totally.
I found an 18-inch track, didn't cast it, didn't have anything with it to cast it with, but I took pictures.
Yeah, well, I definitely take pictures. And I've taken pictures of tree structures and breaks and bends and twists and, but that's one of the things. Why don't we have good video or good pictures of these things? Because when you're out and you're not looking for one of these things or looking for any evidence, there it is, and then, you're caught with, well, thank God we got cell phones, but other than that, I don't carry a whole backpack full of stuff with me everywhere I go. So
not that easy to catch something moving. I mean, I go out with a normal camera, a Canon, and I've tried to catch birds, and if they're moving, you just can't. You're just not going to get a clear picture, whatever it is. When you think about it, I think under the stress of trying to take in what you're seeing and take a photo, I don't think it's that easy,
Well, no. If we knew how to track them, if we knew where they were going to be, well, Big Bob's over there and Large Marge is over there, we'd be so much better off. But, I didn't ask. I didn't go looking to see what I saw, and it just kind of happens. So,
yeah, you get thrust into it, and then you can't turn away from it, even though you don't want to relive it or you don't want to have anything else to do, with the woods like I did. I looked in just like you. I watched everything I could possibly find on Bigfoot for 11 years, before we decided to do this. And I didn't, have time to watch people's stuff anymore. But I say this, and if it wasn't for Wes Germer and Woody, what happened to them? And it prompting him to do Sasquatch Chronicles, I think it was 2012. That to me has helped so many people come forward and bring their stories out, hearing someone else tell their encounter. Because I couldn't find anything even remotely close to what happened to me that had happened to anybody else. Mike Woolley, what happened to him was pretty close, as far as, interaction to what happened to me. But I didn't know Mike Woolley, at the time. And you get, back then it was Coast to Coast AM, and you got, Butchie Kid and a bunch of hoaxers on the internet putting, Bigfoot caught on tape, and then you hit on it, and it's somebody's, size 12 foot with a piece of duct tape on it. It's a Bigfoot caught on tape. So yeah, you got you know, a lot of aggravating things like that. But I think once, you know, the podcast came out and then other people started doing their podcast, and, you know, to me, there's a lot more traction in the subject now with people coming forward and wanting to have, you know, to get their story out there. We absolutely want to get people's story out there, and it's all about awareness. You know, we're not going to prove anything. You know, you can listen to someone's story and listen to their voice and pretty much, you know in your heart of hearts that they're telling the truth. And that's why we do what we do. It's all about awareness, whether you believe or not. Just consider it. When you're in the woods and you hear that thing, don't play it off as something else. You hear that strange thing, that scream, that, you know, that baseball bat would knock 40 yards away. Just consider it as a possibility. That way, if it does step out on you, you're not completely wrecked and ruined for the rest of your life. And that's how I feel about it anyway.
Well, that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing, is to take a skeptic out and say, just give me a couple hours of your time. We'll go to a place that I've had lots of activity. And when something happens that you can't explain, I'll give you a couple of days. Run it through your mind. If there was a vocalization, listen to every animal. You know, Google it. We've got great tools. You know, and in 24, 48 hours, come back to me and tell me that you can't explain. You have no idea. And that's my favorite thing. I've taken several skeptics out that have had an experience that they just can't explain it away, and then it validates, see, I told you there's something going on.
But when you're not aware, you do explain it away. That's exactly what I did forever. Around for 7 years that I was out in this area, that's what I did. Explained all that stuff away because I have no frame of reference. I'm not even thinking anywhere near that. To me, all these things were deer. Just this big buck, and he's so smart. He's just beating me, I can't get him. Things crashing through the woods toward me and breaking limbs, and that's not what bucks do. That's just not what they do. Even if they're angry, they might hook on something, but they're not going to break limbs and come crashing through the woods and then just stop and then it's over with. That happened to me so many times. And what did I do? I explained it away. But if I looked back on all of it, not one bit of it made any sense until I add Sasquatch. Then
it's a slap in the face.
Yeah,
it's definitely a slap in the face. Wake up, stupid. I mean, that's.
Oh man, how stupid did I feel? I still feel kind of stupid to this day. But in my mind, I was the man. No, you can't tell me anything about these woods. You kidding me? Even if I did take somebody out there with me, there would be nothing no one could say to me. I was just that arrogant and full of myself about that place. Hearing voices, hearing people talking, thinking there's somebody coming down the road, and it sounded close, and I'd yell at them, "Hey, shut up!"
Well, you mentioned Sasquatch Chronicles, Wes. How about the I can't think of his name right now, but the How to Hunt guy on YouTube. I mean, let's talk about a man. He's down in there. He hunts. He guides hunts, whatever. And it's inspiring to see him come out and talk about stuff. And he'll tell you, I don't give a damn what you think. I don't care. But this is what happened.
That's putting it politely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard of him. Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the tough guy thing. I don't care what you think. To me, you have to kind of care what people, think. There's no courage in not caring what anybody thinks. That's kind of how I see that. There's no, I don't believe him. I think he does care. Maybe he doesn't care what detractors think, but I think, I think he cares what believers think. I really do. I think he might need to come, maybe at a different angle, If you don't believe me, I don't care what you think. That I can track with. But, it's because we do care what people think why we don't come out with our story initially. I cared what people thought. Absolutely. I thought people were going to think I was out of my mind. I even questioned myself, you know, at points. But if it wouldn't have been such an epic thing, I probably would have questioned probably my sanity even a little bit more. But it affected me so much. I mean, I laid in my bed for 6 months watching my closet door before I went to sleep. You know, it was that kind of, it does that to you, or it did that to me anyway.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying, you know, and like I told you when we first talked, the only reason I reached out to you is because your sighting, you know, was so, the way you talked about the fear, the way, I don't know, it was very extremely relatable. You know, not very many people see these things up close, and yes, yours was angry, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done in your situation.
I don't know how I
Alan,
didn't pass out. I really don't. And you talked about when you said you just realized you were, you know, however far away from this thing, you don't remember. I don't remember the walk out. I know I remember what I did, but I couldn't go through step, you know, even 100 yards of the trip out of there until I got to that one point and heard the stick break. I know what I did then. That's the first time I ran, was to get on my four-wheeler and get out of there. The most terrified I was the whole time was getting on my four-wheeler,
right?
thinking, this is it. I made it this far and now he's got me.
And so, yeah, and so when I tend to think of when people talk about, well, I had lost time or I had missing time, or, you know, I tend to think maybe that's what it is. You have missing time, but you were there. I mean, it's our brains, you know, our defense mechanisms, you know, it just tells us you're not going to remember this. You know, I'm gonna save you from whatever, you know, whatever happened or didn't happen, or, you know, it was definitely, I never want to feel that way again, ever.
Right. I think maybe, you know, as far as what happened to me, I think if I had just gone out there once and had this happen to me, there might have been a lot more of things that I didn't remember, you know, about it. But because I had been out there so much and had all these strange things happen to me, and then here's this thing, and then all of a sudden, this is the reason. It's not just him. It's got to be several more of these, you know, creatures out here. And I think if it had been just like that, that I might have forgotten a lot more of it. Maybe, I don't know. It's possible, but there were so many of those things that I was thinking about in the moment coming back to me. This is what this was. That's what this was. You know, you got to be kidding me. It's this WTF moment. You know, every 10 seconds that something else comes back to you.
Well, you know, I mentioned, so I'm a security guard and I patrol one of the lakes down here, and there's a couple of extremely dark, creepy places that I have to go and check. And I pretty much, you know, I prepare myself before I go into these places, and I kind of drive with my blinders on, and every corner that I turn, I think, okay, there could be something standing here. Just prepare yourself. You know, it's insane just how much of your life it affects.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
like
because you know what
hunter.
can possibly happen. Your complacency is completely gone now. You're prepared. Every time you go to one of those places, there's no just ambling up there, and you're ready. I get it. I 100% get it. Where are we?
Yeah.
We got any more questions? I thought I saw a couple. Anybody got a question? Y'all break out your questions. Put them in caps for us.
Yeah.
And
Omar did make a good point before about, let me just see if I can find it again, because it's quite far up. But it's about.
I don't usually talk this much about my encounter, but it is. I relate it to yours a lot.
The question's already gone. I can't see it now, but it was basically when you were saying before about you think that they know that they need to stay away from us, and they know that we know that they know, and I was saying, but how does that explain the ones that are coming in closer to the towns? If they know they shouldn't mess with us, you know, you could put the odd one off to a juvenile or something, but maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe there's more feral ones that are deep into the woods where people just don't go, and there's ones that are becoming more accustomed to humans. I don't know, and maybe that's what will trip them up if that is what is happening. If they're becoming more, you know, in tune with us. I don't know.
I think I try to put myself in other people's shoes when I meet people, you know, on the day to day, and so I try to put myself maybe in their feet, so to speak. You know, what if they look at us and they go, "These things are exactly like us, but they're hairless and they're small." So, and we've got these villages, you know, cities, villages, full of lights and sounds and cars and what, you know, if they had that and we didn't, we would be going and checking on them and seeing what they're doing. I mean, and so maybe that's, you know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe, you know, these little things are just like us, except they're small and they do these weird things with these lights. You know, let's go check on these. You know, I really don't know. We may never know, but I'd like to think, and maybe that's just my mind trying to rationalize these things. You know, maybe that's what it is.
Brown Dwarf says, "Is there a history of activity in this gentleman's area?" Momo.
Yeah, Momo. In fact, the sighting that I had about 15 when I was 15, about 6 years prior, I talked to a guy. He was with a group. They were partying or something out in this area, and there was a big dark one that they saw, and it was literally just 6 years prior. And he described it. He described the area. I mean, it was pretty much the exact same area. And
what happened?
Well, they were partying. It was a group of people, and this thing, they just happened to look up, and this thing had, you know, walked past, or they saw this thing, and it scurried off, you know. But it, you know, they described it. It was big and bulky. It definitely wasn't the same one I saw. You know, but it validated, you know, years later. That was on when Finding Bigfoot came to town, and he had told his story, you know, before I told mine, and it kind of validated, you know, hey, I was in that exact same area, you know, and I saw something completely different than what you saw, but it was the same, you know. So it really validated, you know, like you said, you know, sometimes you think, well, did that happen? Did that really happen? You know, and you have doubts. But when you hear of things like in your episode, you know, Bo, you know, saw, so you were validated there, you know.
I talked to Daniel first. He saw it when he was 15. Told his mom and dad, "There's a gorilla, you know, a huge 8-foot tall gorilla," and there was like 4 or 5 kids. They all took off running. He had seen it when he was 15, and you know, they still hear the knocking out there. He said, "Yeah, it happens all here all the time. 11 o'clock at night, pow, pow. I mean, just loud. I used to hear it all the time. I mean, constantly, you know, hear that."
Yeah, and it's a sense of kind of comfort that maybe you weren't crazy, maybe you weren't delusional at one point. You know, other people have seen them in this area. You know, so and yeah. In the wintertime here in Springfield area, surrounding area, the lakes, in the wintertime, it really blows up. You know, summertime, everybody's out fishing and camping, and I don't know, there are some sightings and some activity, but in the wintertime, in these areas of people not going out and fishing and camping, there's all sorts of activity.
Absolutely. Well, I think we have come to the end of our hour. Chris, thank you so much for coming in and telling your stories and discussing this creature with us here tonight, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, and we'll have to have you back. You're constantly going out and checking on these creatures, aren't you?
I'm out quite a bit. Yes.
Well, you got my number. You come across something good, man, holler at me. We'll bring it on here and show it to everybody else.
I'll video it and send it to you.
Good deal. Daniela, great show as always. Tomorrow night, 7:00 p.m. Central, it's going to be the 4 Calling Birds episode. And actually, Daniela, she pointed this out in the bottom right corner. Daniela makes this beautiful overlay here. She put 3 French hens in the bottom right corner. And she said, well, what am I going to do when it gets to be 11 Lords of Leaping? Where am I going to put them? So thank you all for coming out. Tomorrow night, 7:00 p.m. Central, we're going to have Arizona Sasquatch. Kevin's going to be on there with us.
Sorry, it's Arizona Squatch.
Oh, Arizona Squatch.
Yeah.
Sorry
there is
about
an Arizona Sasquatch. And
sorry, Kevin. I apologize. There is all right. Arizona Squatch is going to be on here with us. Should be a very interesting show. But thank you guys for joining us here tonight. Don't forget Paranormal Portal at 9:00 p.m. Central.
See y'all. Good night.
Thank you.